Okay, so here's a thought. We live in this world, right, where everyone's glorifying the grind, wearing busy like some kind of, I don't know, badge of honor.
Definitely. It's all about the hustle.
Exactly. But what if?
Yeah.
What if the real secret to getting what you want, to achieving those big dreams, is actually maybe doing less?
Uh-huh.
We're told constantly, push harder, hustle more, fill every second. But, what if that whole approach is actually holding us back?
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? Society screams, go, go, go. But maybe, just maybe, the real power is in the pause, in being strategic about not doing.
That is exactly what we're diving into today. Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your sources, books, articles, research, and really pull out the core ideas, the nuggets of wisdom.
And today's source is James Ferris's book, The Art of Being Lazy, Small Efforts, Big Impacts. Quite the title.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our mission here is to unpack this, to challenge all those ingrained ideas about productivity. We want to show you how embracing what Ferris calls strategic inactivity might actually lead to a life that's, well, more joyful, more creative, and believe it or not, even more productive.
Yeah, you're about to step into a perspective where laziness isn't, a character flaw. It's actually reframed as a kind of hidden genius.
Hidden genius, I like that.
We'll look at some surprising facts Ferris brings up, some really practical techniques, even some ancient wisdom, all aimed at redefining achievement, getting more done without that constant feeling of being overwhelmed. So let's get into this idea of lazy brilliance.
Okay, lazy brilliance. I have to admit, when I first saw that title, The Art of Being Lazy, my gut reaction was like, oh, great, permission to just slack off.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I get that.
But Ferris is talking about something much deeper, isn't he? He's saying laziness might be this misunderstood virtue, challenging that whole idea that nonstop action is the only way. How does he separate this lazy brilliance from, just putting things off?
That's a really key distinction he makes. He's absolutely not saying, avoid work or just be idle. It's all about shifting from hard work, just for the sake of it, to smart work.
Okay.
He even brings up that Anne Frank quote, laziness may appear attractive, but work gives satisfaction. But he interprets it differently. He suggests satisfaction isn't just from grinding away. It's from finding the hidden genius within what looks like laziness. It's about being smart enough to know what work actually gives that satisfaction and focusing there. Working less, maybe, but with much more intention.
So being really intentional about not expending effort wastefully. Wow, that's a big shift. And the book uses examples, right, like Einstein.
Oh, absolutely. Einstein is a prime example Ferris uses. A genius, obviously, but also known for his daydreams, his lazy hours, as he called them. These weren't wasted moments. Ferris argues there were crucial periods of, strategic inactivity, letting his mind wander freely. That's where some of his biggest breakthroughs in physics apparently came from. It wasn't forced effort. It was allowing space for connections to happen.
Yeah, I totally get that. Those shower thoughts, or when you're just walking, the solution just appears. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And didn't Ferris also mention a manager? Someone who sort of embodied this?
He did, yeah. A great little anecdote. Picture this manager in a super high-pressure environment. Colleagues are pulling crazy hours, like 60, 70 a week
Really?
there. Right. But this manager consistently worked fewer hours, and yet his team always outperforming the others. His secret wasn't putting in more time, it was putting in less unnecessary effort.
Yeah.
Well, he was brilliant at delegating the right things. He prioritized ruthlessly, focusing only on what truly mattered. And crucially, he encouraged his team to take regular strategic breaks. He understood that creativity needs breathing room, that minds burn out. It's not just for geniuses, it's about anyone maximizing their impact by cutting out the fluff.
So the core idea then, it seems, is the power of strategic rest. We feel so guilty taking breaks sometimes, like we're slacking off. Ferris flips that, right?
Completely flips it. And science actually backs this up. Ferris points to a study, I think, from the University of Illinois. It showed that even brief diversions, like short breaks from a task, significantly improve your ability to focus afterwards for longer stretches.
Interesting.
So the strategic laziness, this intentional inactivity, it's not a luxury. It's like hitting the reset button for your brain, pushing too hard, overworking. It doesn't just tank productivity, it messes with your think and your health. Strategic rest. That actually boosts creativity, sharpens problem solving. It's an investment, really.
That makes a ton of sense when you put it that way. Okay, so if lazy brilliance is the mindset, what are the sort of practical principles Ferris gives us? Because we do get stuck in that trap, right? Busyness looks like productivity, but really we're just running in place.
Yeah, the hamster wheel. This is where Ferris brings in the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. But not just as some, time management gimmick. He frames it as the ultimate act of strategic laziness.
Okay, explain that.
Well, Pareto first noticed it with, pea pods. 20% of the pods had 80% of the peas. Then with wealth, 20% of people owned 80% of the land. Ferris says, apply this to your life. Figure out, what's the critical 20% of your activities that actually generate 80% of your results?
Find the high-impact stuff.
Exactly. And then here's the lazy brilliance, be absolutely ruthless. Either eliminate or delegate that other 80%, the stuff that takes time but doesn't really move the needle. It's about deliberately choosing minimum effort for maximum gain. Ferris says it leads to more joy and greater results, less grind.
Just thinking about that feels lighter. But, okay, the flip side. In this world that demands so much, saying no is hard.
Yeah.
It feels almost impolite sometimes.
I can feel that way, yeah. But Ferris argues it's actually a profound act of self-preservation. He quotes Warren Buffett, someone pretty successful, right?
Okay.
Buffett apparently said, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything.
Wow. Okay.
Think about it. Every time you say yes to something minor or something that isn't in your core 20%, you're effectively saying no to something that is important. Saying no isn't about being difficult. It's about protecting your time, your energy, your focus. It's a beautifully lazy way to guard your most valuable asset.
Guarding your energy. I like that. So saying no handles the external demands.
Yeah.
But what about that internal pressure, the perfectionism thing, that voice saying it's not good enough yet? How does lazy brilliance deal with that?
Oh, that's huge. Ferris really tackles that perfectionism obsession head on. He uses that Winston Churchill quote, perfection is the enemy of progress.
Right.
Because perfectionism, it can totally paralyze you. You get stuck in anxiety, you procrastinate, you end up doing nothing because the standard feels impossible. Ferris pushes for embracing good enough as a realistic, sustainable approach, one that actually allows you to make progress.
So lower the bar slightly to actually get moving.
Sort of, yeah. And he brings in this beautiful Japanese art form, kintsugi, where they repair broken pottery.
With gold, right.
Exactly, with gold lacquer. It doesn't hide the cracks, it highlights them, makes them part of the object's history and beauty. Ferris uses this as a metaphor. We should find the elegance in our own flaws, our imperfections. It frees us from that exhausting chase for some unattainable ideal. It's a very lazy but profound way to just move forward.
Kintsugi for the soul.
Yeah.
It's quite powerful. Okay, and speaking of moving forward, Ferris also talks about our comfort zone. It's not just about staying put, is it?
Not at all. That would be actual stagnation, not strategic laziness. He uses another great quote from John A. Shedd. A ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. The real art here isn't about never leaving the harbor. It's about knowing when the harbor, your comfort zone, is a place for necessary rest and rejuvenation, and when it's actually becoming a trap that limits you. Ferris talks about embracing strategic discomfort.
Strategic discomfort.
Yeah, like deliberately trying a new approach, even if it feels awkward. Allowing yourself to be beginner, to be imperfect at something new. Stepping slightly outside your usual boundaries. It's a proactive way to grow, but without that feeling of relentless, forced striving. Knowing when to push and when to just rest and absorb.
Okay, so we have these principles. 80-20, saying no, good enough, strategic discomfort. How do we weave these into our actual day-to-day? Ferris talks routines, right? But he kind of pushes back against the idea of the perfect morning routine we see everywhere.
He really does. He argues that the most effective routine isn't some rigid template you copy from a productivity guru. It has to be unique to you. Your own rhythms, your own energy flow.
Makes sense.
He suggests maybe a minimalist morning routine. Just one or two key things that ground you, like a moment of reflection or noting something you're grateful for. The real key, he says, is understanding the ebb and flow of your energy during the day.
Like, when are you sharpest?
Exactly. When are you most creative? When do you have the most energy? That's when you schedule those high-impact 20% tasks. And, critically, he brings back the power of breaks, not as wasted time, but as essential moments for rejuvenation. This ties right back into that strategic inactivity idea.
Right. But what about the arch nemesis of productivity, lazy, or otherwise?
Yeah.
Procrastination. That feels like the opposite of lazy brilliance. How do we tackle that the lazy, brilliant way?
Ferris has a really refreshing take on this. He basically says, look, procrastination isn't some deep character flaw. It's just human.
Yeah.
We're wired to prioritize immediate comfort over potential future rewards.
Okay, so how do we hack that?
He suggests a brilliantly simple, almost lazy strategy, the 5-minute rule, or sometimes called the 5-minute miracle.
5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes. The idea is if you're dreading a task, just commit to doing it for 5 minutes. That's it. Often that tiny initial burst is enough to overcome the inertia. You break through the resistance and, you often just keep going.
Huh. It lowers the barrier to entry.
Precisely. It leverages our brain's natural tendency to want to finish things once started. A tiny, lazy commitment that tricks you into making real progress. And he also emphasizes rewarding yourself for progress, however small, and forgiving yourself if you slip up. No beating yourself up.
I can actually see myself using that. That's super practical.
Mhm.
And it kind of leads into another technique people talk about a lot for focus, the Pomodoro Technique. Does Ferris mention that?
He does, and he frames it as a perfect example of strategic laziness in action. You know the drill, right? Developed by Francesco Cirio.
Yeah, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
That's the classic setup. 25 minutes of intense, focused work, then a mandatory 5-minute break. The logic, Ferris explains, is that our brains aren't built for hours and hours of peak concentration. We have limits.
So short bursts are better.
Short bursts maximize that peak capacity. But the real genius, according to Ferris, is in those 5-minute breaks. They aren't just downtime, they are deliberate reset buttons. They allow for mental and even emotional recovery, aligning with how our energy naturally fluctuates. It turns break guilt into an actual productive tool. Strategic inactivity built right in.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, one more thing. If lazy brilliance is about doing less ourselves, how does bringing other people in, like delegation, fit? Doesn't that sometimes feel like more work up front?
But that's where Ferris positions delegation as absolutely core to lazy brilliance. It's about being smart lazy, even enough to outsource or automate the tasks that are menial, repetitive, or just not the best use of your unique skills and energy.
So freeing up your own bandwidth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're freeing up mental space, your creative energy for the stuff that truly requires you. It's not about pawning off work you don't want to do. It's about strategically allocating resources, doing less unnecessary work yourself. You leverage other people's strengths or technology to handle the 80%, allowing you to pour your energy into your critical 20%. Ferris nods to that old African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Delegation is a profoundly lazy, yet incredibly effective way to go further.
That reframes delegation completely. Okay, so we've covered modern science, productivity techniques, but Ferris also taps into ancient wisdom, doesn't he? Were people thinking about this kind of strategic ease way back then?
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating how these ideas echo through time. Ferris brings in some beautiful concepts from Japan, for instance. First, there's Nagomi.
Nagomi.
Yeah, it's about finding harmony, a sense of peace in your environment, letting that external calm seep into your internal state. It's almost like delegating some of your mental load to your surroundings. If your space is peaceful, your mind doesn't have to fight friction. It frees you up. Kind of like that Dutch idea of Nixon purposefully doing nothing, allowing for reflection.
That's a lovely idea. Actively cultivating a peaceful environment as a lazy way to reduce mental static. I like that.
Then there's Ma. Ferris describes this beautifully as like the sacred pause, the space between things, the silence between musical notes.
The gaps.
Exactly. Ma teaches that these pauses, these gaps, are just as important as the actions or the notes themselves. Actively creating Ma moments, not seeing them as empty time, but as essential spaces for incubation. For thought, that's a deeply lazy way to let creativity breathe, to let connections form that wouldn't happen in constant motion.
Making space, literally and mentally.
Okay.
And the third Japanese concept you mentioned, wabi-sabi. That sounds familiar, like it connects back to the perfectionism thing.
It connects perfectly. Wabi-sabi is all about appreciating beauty in things that are incomplete, imperfect, impermanent. Ferris uses it to reinforce that idea of letting go of the exhausting pursuit of perfection.
Right, the kintsugi connection again.
Precisely. If we can find beauty in history and flaws, in the natural cycle of things, we can apply that to our own work, our own lives. It's a lazy, in the best sense and profound way, to accept good enough, to value progress over unattainable perfection. It fosters authenticity.
So much wisdom there. And from Japan, Ferris also looks at ancient Greece and Rome. They weren't exactly idle cultures, but they valued certain kinds of downtime, didn't they?
They really did, and in ways that are surprisingly relevant. The Greeks had skol, it's often translated as leisure, but it wasn't about being idle. It was time specifically set aside away from work for things like self-reflection, learning, personal development.
So intentional non-work time for growth.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder from antiquity that our worth isn't just tied to what we produce. And the Romans had odium. They called it the noble art of downtime. This was time for intellectual pursuits, hobbies, art, conversation, connecting with others.
Noble downtime. Love that.
These ancient ideas, Ferris argues, strongly support his main point. Rest, reflection, leisure. They aren't just breaks from life. They're essential parts of a full, meaningful, and yes, strategically lazy life. They understood these periods were vital.
It all ties together. Okay, so bringing this right up to the present moment, how do we end our day? How do we prepare for tomorrow using this lazy brilliance mindset? It's probably not about checking email until midnight, right?
Definitely not. Embracing strategic laziness here means deeply understanding how vital rest and effective winding down are. Ferris strongly advocates for creating intentional night rituals.
Like what?
Things like maybe a digital detox, putting screens away an hour or so before bed, making your bedroom a real sanctuary, a calm space just for rest. Maybe some light reflective journaling, reading something calming, perhaps some gentle stretching or movement.
It's not lazy in the sense of doing nothing.
Not at all. It's proactive. It's a deliberate investment in your physical and mental health. It's the ultimate act of strategic inactivity, really. You're preparing your mind and body to be refreshed, creative, and energetic for the next day without carrying over the stress from today.
Wow. We've really journeyed through this idea, haven't we? Ferris completely reframes laziness. It's not about being unproductive. It's a strategic, almost elegant path to working smarter, feeling better, being more creative, and achieving more fulfillment.
Absolutely. From understanding lazy brilliance and the 80-20 rule to the power of saying no and embracing good enough and drawing on all that ancient wisdom, the goal seems consistent. Do less, but with way more intention to get more done with less struggle.
It really shifts the perspective.
And that leads to maybe a question for everyone listening. Thinking about all this, what's just one strategic, lazy action you could take? Maybe today, maybe this week.
Could be small, right?
Could be tiny. A moment of planned rest. One task you finally delegate. Saying a firm but polite no to something non-essential. Or just deciding something is good enough and moving on. What single action could make the biggest difference to your goals or just your well-being?
It's a challenge. Dare to be lazy in this new strategic sense. Trust that little voice that maybe wants a bit more ease. See if you can unlock some of that hidden genius Ferris talks about in your own strategic inactivity. This deep dive into the art of being lazy. It feels less like just a book review and more like, I don't know, a manifesto for a different way to live, not just surviving the grind, but actually thriving within it, or maybe even because of it.